Joining me is the Beirut Bureau Chief for news agency AFP, Jean-Marc Mojon. Jean-Marc, thank you so much indeed for taking time out on this very busy day for us. Do you know what happened exactly? How did it happen?
Hello, Andrew. We don't know exactly what happened. The investigation has only just begun, but the sequence of videos that have been circulating on social media can give us an idea already of what might have happened. A first explosion was heard, setting a whole depot warehouse area on fire in the port of Beirut. And then a much larger, minutes later, much larger explosion went off. Something just unseen, even in Beirut, which has a long history of blasts and explosions in its very tortured history. And this appears to have been caused by a stock of ammonium nitrates that had been left unsecured in the port of Beirut for years. This appears to be a fact at this stage. What it was doing there and exactly what set the fire off is still unclear at this stage.
That is a bizarre story about that 7 years ago. Look, if it's the same ammonium nitrate, a ship forced to unload its massive cargo in a warehouse, and it sits there for 7 years. That's quite extraordinary. And this is stuff that's more powerful than a conventional TNT or something. Is this sort of a sign of a chaos in Lebanon? Is this how things work there? I always thought it was like the Paris of the Mediterranean, that things weren't quite so shambolic.
Well, it's also a very corrupt state, and people are, even if they don't know yet exactly what happens and they're waiting for some details to come out, everyone is already saying this kind of incident cannot happen in a country that is well run. It can only happen in a country where corruption and incompetence are basically the main attributes of the government. And so there's a lot of anger. There are clearly a lot of procedures that haven't been followed by the customs and the port authorities. And everyone will be looking into this very closely in the coming hours and coming days.
But this feeds into something that you've been covering for a while now, the unrest and the upset among ordinary people with the government. There's been protests and all this kind of stuff. How is the reaction been now that you've got this as well, this major, well, catastrophe, really?
Well, people are furious. Of course, it's not just a natural disaster. This is something, it's a man-made disaster, and people are absolutely furious. They are saying that this is the price to pay for corruption. This is the way people think about this incident now. And they had already been dealing with the devaluation of the local Lebanese currency. Their purchasing power had dropped by 60, 70, maybe up to 80% in recent months. I think everyone was willing to see what the government might be able to do in the coming weeks to maybe strike a deal with the IMF and sort out the Lebanese economy that was really on its last legs already. But this is too high a price to pay. I think we're going to see a lot of anger in the coming days in the Lebanese public, because this is it is somebody's fault. It's not just a natural disaster, despite the fact that it felt like one. The only way to describe the scenes in the streets of Beirut these days is to compare it to an earthquake.
It's such a tragedy for a country that's seen so much tragedy and strife and has been trying to put a lot of that behind it. Jean-Marc Mojon, we look forward to your further reports for AFP, and my gosh, well, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Andrew.